Hey everybody, it's Wednesday night. Welcome to the Bible Project. And as you know, we finished off the books of the Bible after our 2.5 or 3 year journey through the books of the Bible on Sunday nights. Now the Bible Project's on Wednesday nights. And we are moving on to some other topics. They have some other great videos and a couple of things that um, some themes or some keywords that we kept seeing and hearing a lot, particularly in the New Testament, particularly in Revelation. We've decided to go on into some of those, and tonight we're going to talk about the Holy Spirit. We hear that a lot throughout from Acts on through the Bible Project videos, but as we see tonight, it goes all the way back to Genesis. Again, great thing about these Bible Project videos are the fact that they go back and connect kind of big picture throughout the whole Bible, whether it's about a book, whether it's about the Holy Spirit, or any other topic. So, and that's what you do tonight in the subject of the Holy Spirit. To find out what it is, we go back to the first page, literally the second verse of the Bible. The world is not yet even created, it's just the heavens. God created the heavens and the earth. And you've read this before and you maybe didn't even click in your mind. The world is dark and chaotic, it's formless right now. But if you read, and our verses are up here, Genesis 1, first two verses, Genesis 1, 1 and 2. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. There it is. Maybe not even noticed it before. Second verse of the Bible, the Holy Spirit. So it's mentioned right away, but what is it? It is the Spirit is God's personal presence. It's, as they mentioned in the video, it's like an energy, and they use this word, original word, ruach, right? And it's just like, and they describe it as the wind, right? You don't see the wind, you see its effects, you know it's there, you feel it, you know it's there. But it's the energy that you know. You breathe in air, you don't see it, but you know. Take a deep breath, you feel it breathing out, right? And you know it's there. Um, so the energy involved in these two things, powerful, and so is this ruach, right? God's ruach enables or empowers people throughout the Bible to complete certain tasks. And of course, like I said, we talk about this a lot from Acts with the disciples and the first believers, and we'll get to that in a second through the end. But it goes into begins in the Old Testament. If you think about, again, we see these stories and know these stories, but Joseph is the first one that we really see in the Bible. The Spirit enables him to interpret dreams, right? You all know that story. Later on in the Old Testament, of course, we see multiple prophets who are all given the ability to see what is happening through God's point of view and then tell the people God's message, right? They're God's messengers. That is the Spirit working, empowering them, working through them. But the message to the prophets in the Old Testament was this, that God created a good world. As we know, humans have given into evil all the way. Again, we go back to Genesis for that and still see that all the way through today. But the Spirit will come again and transform the human heart, which leads us to obviously the New Testament and Jesus being sent by God. And we see a key point here is when Jesus is baptized by John the Baptist. God sends, and if you look up those verses, God sends the Holy Spirit down on him. So God's Spirit is empowering Jesus to begin to begin a new creation. He can heal people, and He also forgives their sins. He gives life where there is death. Okay, um, and then we see obviously He is killed. So what happens to the Spirit then? Even in His death, God's Spirit is still at work. He is empowered to rise again by the Spirit. The disciples are then later given the Holy Spirit by Jesus when He returns after His death. And now we look ahead to John 14:15 through 17. And He says, "If you love me, you will obey what I command. And I will ask the Father, and He will give you another counselor to be with you forever, the Spirit of truth. The world cannot accept him because it neither sees him nor knows him, but you know him, for he lives with you and will be with you." Okay? So they live and are guided by the Holy Spirit after that. So Jesus was soon going to be leaving them. So what would remain? Well, in this case, Jesus tells them, describes it as a counselor, right, which is very interesting word to use, right? Somebody who counsels you. But this is going to be the Spirit of God Himself. The Spirit comes down upon them just before Jesus ascends into heaven and is poured out on the believers. And we'll see that happen at Pentecost in Acts, which we'll get to in just a second. Acts chapter 1, verse 5. And that says, "For John baptizes with water, but in a few days you will be baptized with the Holy Spirit." So again, we know, everybody knows what the Trinity is: God the Father, the Son, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit, which was always there, again, all the way back to Genesis chapter 1, verse 2, we see that. So if Jesus, when we think about this, if Jesus had stayed on earth, his physical presence would have been limited by this, would have limited the spread of his word because he was human, right? We say that all, God in a bod, right? He was fully God and fully human. Because he was human, he could not be everywhere at once. Now, through the Spirit, he would be in all of the disciples and all of these believers, and everywhere in the world. So we skip ahead to right after Acts 1:5, Acts 2:1 is where the Holy Spirit comes at Pentecost. This is a celebration feast that takes place, you still hear about this today, 50 days after Passover. We know Jesus was killed, right after Passover. Jesus, so if you look at the timeline, Jesus ascended after 40 days after his resurrection. So he was killed and resurrected. 40 days later is when we see him ascend into heaven. And this is another 10 days later. This is where the Holy Spirit comes upon the people, and Peter speaks to the crowd. You probably heard this in Acts 2, I believe it starts in Acts 2:5, and Peter speaking. And this is where people from all these different nations have come. They all speak different languages, and yet they all hear and understand what Peter is saying, and many are converted. Many become followers of Jesus at this time. Okay, kind of kicking off the missionary work of the disciples and these now followers of Jesus. So we've talked about the change in the disciples from before Jesus was killed to after. We talked about, obviously, one big difference was that they see Jesus. But another main difference is they are empowered by the Holy Spirit. We talked about this multiple times here over the last few months, how they were weak and cowardly and denied Jesus and all these things, and now they are bold, and they are, um, you know, leaders in every one of the leaders in the first century church that we talked so much about in the New Testament here in the last few months. So they're empowered by that Holy Spirit. So the Spirit is empowering us today. It's still there, still transforming us to love God and to love others. And so to take it from beginning to end, the Bible ends, we just talked about Revelation, with a new humanity, which will be the ultimate and final job of the Holy Spirit. So we see it from literally Genesis to Revelation. And everywhere in between, really. We don't always think about it, but that is what the Holy Spirit is all about, and it's in all of us, all the followers of Jesus and believers, empowering us even to this day. We'll meet on Zoom at 6:20. The Bible Project, this video is fairly short. The Bible Project video is only about 4 minutes, so you can probably watch both starting at 6 o'clock, still be on Zoom by 6:20. If you're catching this later, thank you for watching, and we will meet us on Zoom, or we'll see you on Sunday.